It is a Tuesday morning. You are already late. Your 3-year-old is running toward the street. You shout, "Stop!" They run faster. You shout, "Stop again!" They laugh. Your chest tightens. You grab their arm. They yank it away. And now you are in a power struggle on the sidewalk with a toddler while the clock is ticking and your patience is gone. Every parent has been here. The word you used was stop. The result you got was the exact opposite. Not because your child is defiant, not because they do not respect you, but because of something happening inside their brain that makes compliance with the word stop almost neurologically impossible. Nordic parents figured this out decades ago, not through theory, through observation. They noticed that every time they said stop, their children did the thing harder. And instead of deciding that their children were the problem, they asked a different question. What if the word itself is the problem? What if there is a better way to say what we mean, that a child's brain can actually follow? That question led to one of the most practical differences between Nordic parenting and Western parenting. And the science behind it is far more interesting than you might expect. Let us start with the experiment that explains why stop never works. In 1987, a psychologist named Daniel Wegner at Trinity University in San Antonio ran one of the most famous experiments in the history of cognitive science. He gathered a group of participants and gave them one instruction: try not to think about a white bear. For 5 minutes, they were supposed to keep a white bear out of their minds. Every time the image appeared, they were to ring a bell. The bells rang constantly, not occasionally, constantly. The participants could not stop thinking about what they were told not to think about. But here is the part that matters even more. After the 5 minutes ended, Wegner told them they could now think about anything. The participants who had been suppressing the white bear thought about it far more frequently than a second group who had been told from the beginning to think about white bears freely. The act of suppression had not just failed, it had created a rebound effect. The forbidden thought came back stronger than if it had never been suppressed at all. Wegner called this the ironic process theory, and it applies directly to what happens when you tell a child to stop. When you say, "Stop running," your child's brain has to activate the concept of running just to understand the instruction. It cannot process the negation without first activating the thing being negated. Your child hears, "Stop running," and their brain lights up with running. Now they are thinking about running, not walking, not sitting still, running. The very word you use to prevent the behavior has just made it more likely. This is not a theory about toddlers. This is a verified mechanism of human cognition that operates in every brain at every age. Adults experience it too. Try not to think about dessert tonight. Notice what your mind does. It goes straight to dessert. The difference is that adults have a fully developed prefrontal cortex that can override the ironic process most of the time. A 3-year-old does not. Their prefrontal cortex, the part responsible for inhibitory control and impulse suppression, is one of the last brain regions to mature. It will not be fully developed until their mid-20s. When you say stop to a toddler, you are asking the one part of their brain that cannot yet do the job to do it anyway. And then you get frustrated when it fails. But the problem is not the child. The problem is the instruction. Research on child compliance supports this directly. Multiple studies comparing positive directives, which tell a child what to do, with negative directives, which tell a child what not to do, have consistently found that positive directives produce higher compliance rates. A study conducted at Minnesota State University examined reinforcement of compliance with positive do commands versus negative don't commands in young children. The results showed that children were significantly more likely to comply when the instruction told them what behavior to perform rather than what behavior to stop. The mechanism is simple. A positive directive gives the brain an executable action. A negative directive gives the brain a forbidden action and then asks it to figure out the alternative on its own. For a child with an undeveloped prefrontal cortex, that is an almost impossible cognitive task. Nordic parents understand this intuitively. They do not say, "Stop running." They say, "Walk, please." They do not say stop yelling, they say use your quiet voice. They do not say stop hitting, they say gentle hands. This is the three-word redirect. Instead of naming the behavior you want eliminated, you name the behavior you want to see. It sounds subtle, but neurologically it is the difference between activating a problem and activating a solution. Let me explain why this works with more precision, because understanding the mechanism is what makes you actually use it. There are 3 reasons the three-word redirect is more effective than stop, and each one is grounded in a different area of psychological research. First, it bypasses the ironic process entirely. When you say, walk please, there is no forbidden action to suppress. There is no white bear to avoid. The brain receives a clear, executable instruction. Walk. The motor cortex activates. The body complies. No rebound effect, no cognitive overload. The instruction goes in, and the body follows. Second, it gives the child agency instead of control. This is where self-determination theory comes in. Pioneered by Edward Dexy and Richard Ryan at the University of Rochester, self-determination theory demonstrates that human beings of every age are more motivated to comply when they feel they are choosing rather than being forced. The word stop is a command. It tells the child they are wrong and you are right. It positions them as subordinate and you as authority. That triggers resistance, especially in children who are developing autonomy. A redirect, by contrast, tells the child what to do right. It positions them as capable. The difference between stop running and walk with me is not just linguistic, it is relational. The first is a wall, the second is a path. Third, it breaks the shame cycle. When a parent says, stop that, the implicit message extends beyond the behavior. Over time, children internalize repeated stop as, I am doing something wrong, which becomes, I am wrong. This is not speculation. Longitudinal research on parental language and child self-concept has shown that children who hear more prohibitive language develop more negative, self-referencing patterns by middle childhood. They begin to describe themselves as bad or naughty, not because of what they did, but because of how they were told to stop what they did. Nordic parenting philosophies, particularly the Danish concept of anerkendelse, prioritize correcting behavior without correcting identity. Anerkendelse translates roughly as acknowledgement or recognition, but in Danish pedagogical practice, it means something deeper. It means seeing the child as a complete person whose actions can be guided without their worth being questioned. The three-word redirect is anerkendelse in action. It addresses the behavior. It does not attack the child. Let us walk through 6 common scenarios so you can see exactly how this works in practice. Scenario 1. Your child is running toward the street. Old response, stop running. Three-word redirect, slow down, walk with me. You are still urgent. You are still protecting safety, but you are directing the body toward what to do instead of away from what not to do. The urgency is preserved. The instruction is clearer. Scenario 2. Your child throws a toy in anger. Old response, stop throwing things. Three-word redirect, put it down gently. The body now has a specific physical action to execute that replaces the aggressive one. Notice the word gently. It does not just tell the child what to do with the toy, it tells them how. That additional specificity is what makes the redirect work. Put it down is an instruction. Put it down gently is a value. Scenario 3. Your child is screaming in a restaurant. Old response, stop screaming. Three-word redirect, use your inside voice. The brain now searches for the concept of inside voice instead of amplifying the concept of screaming. The irony here is that you have probably already discovered this accidentally. Every parent who has ever whispered to a screaming child has noticed that the whisper works better than the shout. That is the same mechanism. The whisper gives the brain a model to copy. Stop screaming gives the brain the very behavior to amplify. Scenario 4. Your child hits another child. Old response, stop hitting. 3-word redirect. Hands are for helping. This is one of the most powerful Nordic phrases because it does something beyond redirection. It replaces a prohibition with an identity statement. You are not just telling the child what not to do. You are telling them who they are. Their hands are for helping. That reframing activates a completely different self-concept in the moment. Scenario 5. Your child refuses to clean up. Old response: stop being lazy. 3-word redirect. Let us put the blocks away. The phrase, let us, creates partnership instead of command. The child is no longer being ordered, they are being invited. For a toddler developing autonomy, that distinction is the difference between resistance and cooperation. Scenario 6. Your child is grabbing food from someone else's plate. Old response: stop grabbing. 3-word redirect. Ask first, please. This redirect does something the others do not. It teaches a social skill. Every time you replace stop grabbing with ask first, please, you are not just stopping the behavior. You are building the neural pathway for asking instead of grabbing. Over weeks and months, the pathway strengthens. The behavior shifts, not because you punished it away, because you built something better in its place. Now, some of you are thinking, this sounds too gentle. What about danger? What about emergencies? When your child is about to touch a hot stove, you say stop. Of course you do. The 3-word redirect is not for emergencies. It is for the 90% of daily interactions that are not emergencies, but become power struggles anyway. Nordic parents understand something fundamental about this. Every time you say stop to a non-emergency, you dilute the power of the word for when you actually need it. Scandinavian pediatric guidelines explicitly recommend reserving the word no and the word stop for situations involving physical danger. The reasoning is simple. If you say stop 20 times a day, stop loses all urgency. Your child hears it as background noise. If you say stop twice a year, stop carries the weight of a fire alarm. The 3-word redirect protects the authority of your emergency words by keeping them rare. When you do say stop, your child knows you mean it. There is one more layer, and it might be the most important one. Nordic parents do not just redirect behavior, they narrate the feeling behind it. When a child is hitting because they are frustrated, the Nordic parent says, "You are frustrated. Hands are for helping." When a child is screaming because they are overwhelmed, the Nordic parent says, "You are overwhelmed. Let us take a breath." Acknowledgement first, then redirect. This 2-step pattern, acknowledge then redirect, mirrors the co-regulation process we explored in our video about Danish hygge. The child's nervous system cannot process a redirect until it feels seen. The acknowledgement opens the door. The redirect walks through it. If you skip the acknowledgement and go straight to the redirect, you get resistance. The child's brain is still in threat mode. The nervous system is still dysregulated. The redirect bounces off like water on a hot pan. But when you name the feeling first, something shifts. The child's nervous system registers, this person understands. The threat response begins to deactivate, and in that window, the redirect enters. This is the full Nordic framework, not just what to say, but what to say first. So here is your practice for tonight. 4 steps. Step 1. Catch yourself before you say stop. That pause, even half a second, is where the shift happens. Step 2. Ask yourself what behavior you actually want to see, not what behavior you want to stop. Step 3. Say it in 3 words or fewer. Walk, please. Quiet voice. Gentle hands. Step 4. If your child is emotionally escalated, add acknowledgement before the redirect. You are frustrated. Walk with me. You are angry. Put it down gently. You are overwhelmed. Let us take a breath. 3 words for the redirect, 1 sentence for the acknowledgement. That is the Nordic formula. Not softer parenting, smarter neuroscience. If this is your first time here, welcome. The Nordic method decodes the science behind the world's most effective parenting cultures. Subscribe and join us next time when we explore another pattern hidden in plain sight. What is one phrase you have replaced stop with in your own home? Tell me in the comments. I will respond to every answer in the first 24 hours.